Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, back with another episode. This is episode number 291 on the 21st of May in our year of gaming 2023. Here with me, as always, is my stalwart compatriot, co-host, partner in crime, Mr. Towmaster99. How you doing, Tow?
I am doing well, and Superman fan, as I have my Superman shirt on today.
Very cool, very cool. There we go with the mutually coordinated co-branding. So we're gonna go through the normal format like we normally do. We're gonna start off segment one talking about our main gamer experience stories for tonight, mostly centered around new games that we've been playing. And then we'll hit some news and the headlines, and then we will round out the show with the rest of our gamer experience report. So starting off the top of the show, I'll kick it off tonight with some notes on my dead play on Dead Island 2, which I've been playing on the PC. I think this is a game that came out in April. So a surprisingly good game, I guess I would go ahead and say. It throws me for a bit of a curve in the fact that it's called Dead Island 2, but it takes place in Los Angeles. I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. But I guess the first game occurred on an island, so it's just more of the same zombie apocalypse. It's technically, I've seen it sorted in some genres as a shooter. So I don't know if that's entirely accurate since there's a ton of melee, but it is from first-person view, so you know, it pretty much falls in with the genre. I'm having a good time with it. I've made comments about, you know, there are other teams out there with bigger budgets, larger teams, you know, longer schedule. And this is a deep silver game from our friends at in the Embracer group. And I mean, it's definitely probably what I would call AA, not AAA. However, certain elements of graphical fidelity are right up there, in some cases exceeding what I've seen some other teams do. You know, particularly when we talk about Jedi Survivor, you know, you look at a team the size of Respawn with the resources that they have, and yet this game is more performant, right, coming out of the gate. And in particular, one of the things that I've noted about Jedi Survivor is I wasn't super crazy specifically about things like water effects and fire effects. You know, those are kind of the marquee kind of effects that you kind of expect to be shown off, particularly on PC. And they weren't that remarkably impressive in Jedi Survivor. But they actually seem pretty well done, right, on Dead Island 2. Hokey story, very cheesy. One of the things that I will say is, you know, when we talk about, you know, going back a year, how there used to be this commentary for every new game that came out that this was so-and-so's Breath of the Wild. I will say every game that I see coming out now has a parry mechanic. And I'm like, I don't know that every game needs a parry mechanic. Like, I appreciate what Elden Ring and Bloodborne and all the Souls games have done, but every game seems to be out there chasing that particular dream. I don't know that a parry mechanic in a zombie game really works for me, conceptually speaking. But, you know, it's there. It seems significantly easier to pull off, you know, when you've, and I'm no Souls person, but I have at least stepped my toes in and tried out, right, the Souls games of Bloodborne and Wolong. And of course there's parrying in Jedi Survivor. That is more of kind of a hitbox, you know, super hypersensitive timed, you know, frame timed kind of thing. So it's remarkably easy, right, in these, in Dead Island 2. You know, obviously, probably the thing in Dead Island 2 that harkens back to, I forget what was the 360 game with the that was one of its exclusive titles. I guess it was a Capcom game, Super Rig franchise on the Xbox back in the day. The guy was a Dead Rising. Dead Rising. Yeah. So. It kind of harkens back a little bit back to Dead Rising, just in terms of, you know, you can go around and find, you know, not every type of wackadoodle object to use as a weapon, but lots of things to use as a weapon, like pool sticks, things like that. It's a little jerky to me how like you pick things up that don't automatically get armed into your inventory. So like I picked up 2 pool sticks and I tried to just like use the mouse scroll wheel or whatever it's configured to like scroll to that weapon, but it never scrolled to that weapon because you have to actually go into the inventory and slot it into a slot on the weapon wheel, which just like certain ones do slot into the weapon wheel automatically and then certain ones don't. And that's the part that's not intuitive to me. It's not necessarily that I have to go in and slot something into the weapon wheel. I'm accustomed to having to go in and put things in quick slots and things like that. But but I'm not necessarily a huge fan of like certain things go in and certain things don't. But other than that, it's kind of summertime campy cheese kind of content, and and I'm here for it, I guess. After everything doesn't need to be super heavyweight, super melodramatic story like Jedi Survivor. So I've been having a pretty decent time with it. Like I said, playing it on PC. One thing that I need to go back and pull the thread on, I don't know. I was playing it on my system with a widescreen monitor, and I don't know if it natively supports 3440 by 1440p mode. So in 2023, that seems a bit of a deficiency. But like I said, I need to go back and make sure that wasn't just like I am accustomed to, like in cutscenes. You get the black bars on the side and it scrunches down to like a normal aspect ratio video, but it seemed like when I was paying attention to it that it wasn't stretched all the way out in gameplay. But I'll go back. I was being chased by zombies, so I was a little more more focused on that than all of the graphical bells and whistles. But I'll go back and check. Any questions or comments? Have you played Dead Island 2 at all on Xbox? I can't remember if it's on Game Pass or not.
No, it's not on Game Pass. I haven't tried it yet. Does it have multiplayer? I'm pretty sure it did, right?
I believe it does. Yeah, I think so. I think it has like co-op, but I haven't checked that out at all. At the beginning of the thing, it's got like 8 or 9 different Dead Islanders. For you to choose from. Each of whom have like their own. It's kind of like in a Back 4 Blood kind of way. Each of whom has their own particular like skill sets and whatnot. And their buffs, right, that supposedly help you out, like the character that I'm playing. I think I'm playing I can't remember his name, but I'm playing the firefighter, so he's a little more resilient to damage, I think, is the thing. But I mean, it's no The Last of Us or anything like that, but it still can be fun, and I'm having a good time.
Did you ever play Dying Light? Either of the Dying Light
I did.
1 or 2?
I did play a little bit of the first one, I think. I don't think I haven't gotten around to playing any of Dying Light 2 yet.
The second one. Is it reminiscent of Dying? Like, I know those are separate studios that has done that under the Embracer Group, but does it remind you of Dying Light at all? It just says at least the combat. I don't think it has like the traversal of Dying Light. Like, I don't think you can parkour, as far as I know.
No, and I mean, and not solely because of that, but mostly because of that, it doesn't remind me at all of Dying Light 2. And again, because Dying Light 2 is kind of like I said, in terms of the story being campy, and just like summertime popcorn, kind of Joss Whedon, cabin in the woods kind of thing. Dying Light is, and I have the fullest respect for Dying Light and Dying Light 2. I know that those games, Dying Light 2 in particular has done well. But those are the type of games that are super melodramatic and take themselves uber seriously. It's like an episode of The Walking Dead. This is much more so Zombieland. With maybe backed off a little bit from the humor, but it's just totally camp and things are very, very unrealistic. Like you crash land, and one of the airplane passengers that you meet is a movie star, right? And at one point, you guys are going your separate ways, and she gives you her card, which has her address on it. I don't think it's normal for movie stars to have business card. I mean, they may have business cards, but I don't think it has their personal address on it. But she gives it to you, and the thing that I find really funny is she says, if you get out of this and you need help, come find me. And I'm like, I don't know that if I need help in a zombie apocalypse that I'm gonna take like a soft cream puff style, like bougie, like Hollywood star, as if you're gonna like, what help are you gonna offer me? I mean, first of all, if you're going off on your own, I highly question whether or not you're gonna survive right on your own. But I also don't think you're the first person that I would seek out in an effort to help. So, it's just that type of kind of ludicrous, elements of the story. But like I said, it's pretty fun and in certain elements of the graphics, not all elements of the graphics, certain elements of the graphics, are as good or in some cases better than a lot of recent AAA stuff. So it's just a good having a good time.
In open world or open areas?
It
Or
is.
as far as you've played, I guess.
I'm trying to. I don't know. Yeah, yes. I'd call it open world-ish. Kind of like in a Borderlands kind of way. You do, once you get to a certain point of the game, you do get a big Hollywood. It's a goofy. You get it's like a Hollywood. It's like a Houses of the Stars like Hollywood map that you get to kind of navigate around Bel Air. I'm not clear yet if that's like the only area that you stay in. But yeah, it does give you a map for you to figure out how to navigate to and where you may or may not need to go.
Nice.
All right, man. Well, you have been playing another property which also has some Hollywood appeal, but some real Hollywood appeal, not fake Hollywood appeal. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about how you've been making out with Hogwarts Legacy?
Yeah, so I jumped back into Hogwarts Legacy. Excuse me. Kind of put it down for a couple months at least. Not I didn't get like tired of it or anything. I started getting like really hardcore back into Fortnite, and I don't have a huge amount of time to play games, so that kind of took over my life again. Like I can usually only concentrate on like one big game that I really want to play, like when I have time to play my play sessions. But I decided to go back into Hogwarts Legacy, and pretty, most games, like especially if I take like a couple months off, excuse me, it's hard to get back into games sometimes like that. You forget controls, and you're doing all this. And I'm playing on PC, but I'm playing on controller, just because third person. I just feel more comfortable that way. But I actually kind of it didn't really take me too long to get back into it. Excuse me. Controls felt really really great to get back into. It only took me like maybe like 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes at the most, to figure everything out. It's not like a super complicated game. You kind of have to use like the shoulder buttons to kind of flip between your different power sets. You get like well, right now I have 4 different custom screens basically that I can like choose different powers on, and you can just flip between those when you're fighting or whenever, if you're just traveling the world. So once I figured that out, because that's like the most important thing, because I have different customized loadouts basically, that I did different powers. So I was able to get that going. And once I had that going, I was pretty good. The flight is a little weird because you have to like hold down one button and then hit a couple other ones. It's like, okay, so I can jump on my broom. Or the one thing I just got actually when I just played this last time was I have mounts now that I can jump on, and I have it's not a griffin. I think it's called a hippogriff or something like that. It basically looks like a griffin, like bird like, horse bird like amalgamation of animals. But it's called the hippogriff for some reason. I don't really see the hippo part of it, but that's just me. And then there's at least 2 others that I've seen, 2 other creatures that I've seen, but I haven't captured yet that I can actually ride. So I'll start to do that. And it was one thing I think I had mentioned one of the last times I had played a few months ago, where it's kind of like it starts off, you have your basic powers, and then you can upgrade those powers, and then they give you more powers, like different set of powers that you can use. And then they gave you a room in Hogwarts that you can customize. You can throw down different like potion stations and crafting station for plants. You can make different potions and stuff like that. And then I got the I forgot what they call it, but it was like in that space they gave you another space in there where you can put your animals in. Like when you capture the different animals, kind of like turns into like a Pokemon type game at that point. There's a lot of stuff I don't think that you can capture. Maybe like 15 to 20 different animals, I think. But you can capture them, and then when you put them in these like little animal sanctuaries, you can feed them and like clean them and stuff. And when you do that, you can get like different ingredients for those potions, so you don't have to just like find them in the world or buy them or whatever. So that's kind of nice. And then I expanded that. They gave me another room, and then like I said, now I can actually jump on beasts and fly around with those with my broom too. Actually, use broom. Although it seemed like the broom is a little bit faster, or like seems faster. Like when I'm flying with that griffin thing, it didn't seem as fast as the broom. But I don't. Maybe you can upgrade that too. Like I had to upgrade the broom for different attributes. So I think I have a couple more that I can still do at some point. But it just seemed a little bit slower. And like I said, maybe I can make them go faster with like special food or something. I don't know. But it's just kind of cool to just kind of see that animation too. You see the wings flapping, and since he has kind of a horse body, you see his his legs move in, like he's like running in the air and stuff like that. So it's just kind of those little things that I kind of like. And other than that, when I play these a couple days early in the week, actually, I was kind of just doing a little bit of side missions. I didn't really go through the main story right now. So, and I think that was more so because I was trying to get acclimated with the controls again. So, just going through there, I really like the story. Like I said, I was never really big into Harry Potter or like even the movies or anything like that. I never read the books, but I don't know, just for some reason this kind of clicked with me. I don't know if it's because it's not Harry Potter. It's takes place, I think it was 100 years or so, maybe a couple hundred years before the movies and the books. So maybe it's just since it's like a new set of characters and stuff like that, and they kind of call back to some of the characters in the movies and stuff. I've watched a couple of the movies, but I never got big into them. But it's fun though. I just like the magic play. I think is what I really like, because I don't really see just the way they do the magic. They don't kind of do that in a lot of games. So I just like it. And maybe it's more simplistic too. And then I don't have to do like 50 button presses and stuff. It's just, mapped to like one or two buttons, and that's it. I can do it. So it's nice.
Now, are there the notions of classes in this game, or is it just like you're just a student at Hogwarts and you learn, all the stuff kind of as they dictate it to you? Are there like skill branches and areas of specialization and things like that for you to go into?
No, there's not really like a skill tree or branches. They just kind of open up as you progress through the story. I still have a set of, I think, is the dark arts or dark magic that I still have to open up. I might have one of them that I've learned, and it might be like a I guess what would you call it, like a passive thing that happens like when I hit somebody a certain way, and it like curses them, and they just take more damage. So it's not a direct like thing, but there's other like stronger spells and stuff that through the dark magic stuff that you can learn. But I haven't got to that part in the story yet. So the only other thing you can really do is just like upgrade the different pieces of clothes that you have, and you can upgrade those with different buffs and stuff like that. But that's pretty much it.
So those are just all driven by how, I mean, do you have some degree of choice? I mean, you kind of asked me in Dead Island 2, whether it was open world or at least, branching storylines where you were able to kind of, decide, what elements of the story you were going to engage on, by choices you make and decisions you make and directions that you go. Kind of like, in Jedi Survivor, it's a linear story. I wouldn't necessarily call that entirely like open world. But you do pick a direction on the map to go, and you can wind up having encounters. Like I mentioned, I encountered the Rancor like super way early, before I'd even met like the first guy on Kobo that I was supposed to run into. So your progression and your development, is it driven by the sequence of adventures that you happen to engage with based on choices of direction that you choose to go, or are you pretty much lockstep right in how those powers kind of accumulate?
No, yeah, you're kind of locked in there. Like I can't. Basically, the powers are locked into the main storyline. So if I do some of the side stories, it's just I have to just I think the side quests they give you at the time, like it's just for that set of powers you have right there. You can't go any further than that. So it's not like a Skyrim where you can like, go off and fight one of the stronger like dragons right away. It's not like that.
Or do like a side mission and pick up like an additional power or something like that.
Right. Yeah. Like an additional shout or something like in Skyrim. Yeah. You're kind of locked into the story as far as the powers, as far as I can tell. I haven't seen anything where I can like skip ahead or anything like that.
All right, very cool. Anything else on Hogwarts before we go ahead and head over to the news?
Nope, we're just going to continue on that one this coming week.
Okay, going on to segment 2 of the show, we'll talk about our news headlines, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly how to work StreamYard. Yeah, it's just really wonky because it says share screen, and so I'm like super concerned it's about to share the entire screen, but then it gives you the smaller selections after you open up that screen. So Mortal Kombat 12, this story over on GameSpot, our first news story in the rundown. Mortal Kombat 12 revealed as Mortal Kombat 1 releases in September. The story by Darren Bonthis. Developer NetherRealm Studios has officially revealed Mortal Kombat 1, the next chapter in its long-running fighting game series, which releases in September. It takes on that name rather than the expected Mortal Kombat 12 name because, as previous teasers hinted at, Mortal Kombat 1 is sort of a reboot of the series and takes place in the new era timeline established by Liu Kang after he ascended to godhood in 2019's Mortal Kombat 11. So, if you played Mortal Kombat 11, you get to the end of it, and I think in the main game, and then again in the DLC, I think there are a couple of different endings depending on how you proceed through it and choices that you make. But basically, it hits at a reboot of the timeline, and you don't really know entirely which one of those story endings is canon. I think, as far as who becomes kind of the purveyor of the person who gets to select what the new universe looks like. But basically, what this does is it reboots the universe. Respawns some of these characters who have been mainstays of the story and presents them in new ways. So I'm not sure if they have different powers or different martial arts movesets or how exactly it's going to work, but they are supposed to be different. It is supposed to be revolutionary in the Mortal Kombat timeline. So we'll see how that goes down. It also is going to present them like these assistants or like paired fighters that they work with. I get the sense that it's going to be kind of like Fire Emblem Engage, where you have different partners that you can work with, and depending on these cameo fighters or cameo fighters, depending on how they want you to pronounce it. And so depending on which ones you work with, you'll be able to unlock, and work through different power sets and moves within matches. So Jean-Claude Van Damme apparently working his way into Mortal Kombat with skins, etc. So coming out September 19th for PC, Switch, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S, with early access kicking off in mid-September. And then for people who pre-order, I think you will be able to get access to the beta, I believe, in August. It has the normal panoply of various editions that are going to come out. The base edition at $70, $110 premium edition, and a $250 collector's edition. So, Tao, I think you and I both I think you and I have had a pretty long storied run with NetherRealms' games. I think we've played both Injustice and Injustice 2 and Mortal Kombat. I think we both played Mortal Kombat 11. I don't know if you played Mortal Kombat 10. But we've lived through these games with their cinematic stories, where I know on YouTube people have gone through and played all of the characters and taken the various clips, because the clips I think are really good. In particular, the Mortal Kombat 11 ones were really good, and you could put them together and string them together and make like a little movie, which some people on YouTube have done. But are you looking forward to this reboot of the universe?
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the story goes. It's kind of weird too. They say it's a reboot, but I mean they kind of are just continuing what happened in 11. So I'm not really sure where the reboot happens. I don't know if it's just because they're paring down the roster, or they've only had they've officially said I think 6, 7, 8. It looks like 8 characters so far for the main roster that's coming through, which looks like it's like all the original characters from the original Mortal Kombat back in the day. So, but I am excited. 11 was really good. I liked it. I did like the story that they were doing, and I played a little bit of 10. I probably played more of 9, also, which was kind of like their kind of comeback game when they're coming back out. And I don't know, I'm not sure why I skipped over 10. I don't know, I was probably just playing other stuff, but yeah, I really enjoyed 11 a lot, and one of the last probably fighting games that I actually kind of just played all the way through just because I had a story really into it. A lot of times those they would just have like the little blurbs at the end of when went through the story mode back in the day, where it just kind of like a quick like flash animation type ending, or just not even, it's just like still art, and stuff like that, which is cool too. It was kind of, you kind of got a little bit more lore that way, and you never knew like, oh well, like everybody had a backstory at the end of those at the end of those fights, and it's like, well, what's going to happen in the next one, because you didn't know. But now this is like they have a full-fledged story, so it's kind of nice. And yeah, I'm super excited. Kind of weird though with the different premium editions, like 110 just for that medium. I mean, I guess everything is going up in price, so. But they don't really, and I haven't really seen what each edition. Obviously, then the $70 one is just a game, but what the other editions you'll get in those editions. So probably art book and stuff like that. I'm assuming maybe a statue with that 251, because that's a lot. That's pretty big price there on that one.
But it's neat for it to be there for super huge Mortal Kombat fans.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I'm never one of those people who are like, they shouldn't do these, special editions. Like, I'll just buy the base one. I'll be happy with that one, so it's not a big deal. I'll probably end up buying this one on PC though, just because it looks. Well, I mean, this was just kind of a CGI trailer, but it still looked pretty cool.
All right, on to story number 2. This back on ye old favorite, the Microsoft ATVI merger. So this, not quite a story, but a report over at the official website of the European Commission. Commission clears acquisition of Activision Blizzard. The European, actually technically credited to Marguerite Vestager, EVP of the EC. The European Commission has approved under the EU merger regulation the proposed acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft. The approval is conditional on full compliance with the commitments offered by Microsoft. The commitments fully address the competition concerns identified by the Commission and represent a significant improvement for cloud gaming as compared to the current situation. So skipping down to the kind of the meat of the thing that has been the subject of all sorts of various interpretations. And these are the two sections that to me are very pertinent. It talks about a free license to consumers in the European Economic Area for you to access an Activision Blizzard game via any cloud gaming streaming services where they are offered, for which you have a license. We'll come back to these. The other thing that it offers is that Microsoft has agreed to comply with is giving a free license to cloud game streaming service providers to allow EEA-based gamers to stream any Activision Blizzard PC and console games. So let me talk a little bit about how these are being interpreted. And I will first say, my own interpretations of them may not be 100% correct. There are some interpretations of them that are just outright, flat out wrong. This in no way talks about giving people Call of Duty for free. That's the first, right? It clearly states here, games for which you have a license. The way you obtain a license is you buy the game. And so this is nothing more than access. So if you pay $70 for an Activision Blizzard PC or console game, by which then you then have a license for it, you are then allowed to then stream it, i.e. access it via the cloud for a cloud game streaming service. Obviously, that has to be a cloud game streaming service that provides that game, which you have to be subscribed to, which means you are paying a fee for your subscription service. This is talking about scenarios where there are cloud game streaming services like GeForce Now, which is a bring your own game kind of cloud streaming service. It's, if you own a game, we will then seek to be allowed to stream that game to you, provided that you have a license. It is essentially software as a service, and it's an access mechanism. platforming off of that same model, in order for NVIDIA to stream you a game that you have a license to, they also have to have a license for that game. The whole reason there was a big outcry and outrage from the publishers when NVIDIA started just of its own accord during the beta months of GeForce Now, just streaming people content, was because they were doing it without having gone back and negotiated those content access deals with those publishers. So they also need to have a license or some type of arrangement that allows them to serve that out, even if the person has a license. That is what this clause allows them to do. What I don't know, and I'm not making the leap to believe, is that this means that there has to be that there doesn't have to be some type of arrangement between Microsoft Activision and the cloud game streaming service provider, and they're just able to do this for free. Most of those Microsoft Activision games are a lot of them are games as a service. A lot of them have server-side enablement. So Diablo 4, server-side enablement. There are components of it that are games as a service. Overwatch, game as a service. COD, game as a service. So people aren't going to be given, cloud game streaming providers aren't going to be given a license to that and then just go off and set up their own Call of Duty server and run it in an isolated island. That server has to have connectivity back to the mothership. Everybody's got to have Activision accounts. I don't know. So in the cloud industry, you are charged for data egress and ingress. So I don't know that all of those associated services are free to the cloud game streaming service provider. There are lots of little nitnoids in this that I think people make a leap to assume that this makes everything free for everyone, and I don't necessarily believe that that's the case. So, until we find out more details about these deals, I don't know exactly all the ins and outs of all the financials. So, Tao, any comments or thoughts or feelings about this clearing in the A? Microsoft has reported that the deal has also been approved in China, although as of, I'm trying to see when this was posted, as of Friday at about a little bit before 6 p.m., corroboration of that clearance was not yet posted on the Chinese website for I forget what their organization is called, State Administration for Market Regulation. So far that is just a report from Microsoft. I don't necessarily have a reason to disbelieve it. I'm just saying that we haven't gotten official corroboration of that. So I'm sorry, Tao. Any questions or comments on the next most recent fallout of the merger?
So can I ask that people actually thought they were just giving the game free out?
Well, there was in the initial minutes of these stories going up, yeah, there were lots of just kind of rampant foolishness. I mean, as there always are before, people read the devil in the details.
Just knee-jerk reactions, basically. So okay, I understand what this was, but just in general, like, it's the only country so far, or the only place, has been the UK, right? Has denied it.
Depending on how you interpret, I mean, essentially the FTC has denied it, right? Because they said at face value, we're not going to approve this. You're going to have to go, prove your case in our court as an initial first step as to, why this wouldn't be an illegal merger.
Okay, I forgot about that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just every week it's like something else, and I forget things. But and I think I might have asked this question like early on, like, so even if just like one territory says no, then they're pretty much done, or is it more complicated than that?
So the way I understand it, right, that would have to be a choice and a decision that Microsoft would have to make. And so the analogy that I personally like, and this is, let me first say before I say this, right, there are people involved in this argument who take a stand. There are people on both sides of this argument who take extreme stands, and actually just gaming in general, I think I've seen over the last year, where like no analogy makes any sense to them. Like the only thing that would make sense, you know, in a gaming conversation or a conversation like this would be for you to compare it to the exact same similar type of scenario. And I'm like, if you insist on that rigidity, you pretty much eliminate the utility of an analogy. The point of it is for you to be able to compare like things to similar things, not necessarily same to same. So at any rate, this to me is similar to, so it's similar to the way companies deal with like when regulations are imposed upon vehicles, right, for California. What the car manufacturer said is they said it would be ridiculously expensive and it wouldn't make any sense for us to make one type of car for the state of California and make maybe the same model of that car for the other 49 states. Like that would make no sense. So they just make every car compliant with the state of California. And so the choice Microsoft would have to make, and Satya Nadella gave an interview to CNBC where he was actually asked this question. But actually the timeline of that interview was actually just before, so he wasn't aware at that point that the EC had approved the merger. And the scenario that was presented was, hey, if the deal were blocked in the UK, but approved in Europe and I guess ostensibly approved in America, would you then operate right in the countries where it had been approved but not operate in the UK? And as far as I understand it, the specific thing that you know they'd be talking about would be changing the definition of their incorporation, right, within the states, territories, and nations where it had been approved, but then in the UK, Microsoft and Activision would still be two separate entities. And so in that case, in the UK, in order for Call of Duty, for instance, to go on Game Pass, that wouldn't be a Microsoft-owned property going on Game Pass. And so the financial rules, and in order to be compliant with financial regulations in that country, that arrangement would have to be different. That might make a significant financial delta to Microsoft, and therefore they may choose to say not put it on Game Pass in the UK. Maybe. Or they could make other choices. In a lot of cases, some of these companies will choose just to not go through with it because the value added to the acquiring company isn't high enough. And in some cases, the acquiring company may want to change the deal. The acquiring company may say, hey, because we can't incorporate and can't operate, with all of the advantages that we foresaw, Activision shareholders, we want to renegotiate the deal and not pay you as much per share as we had originally negotiated, at which point the Activision shareholders may say, nope, time out, we're not going to do that. So as far as I understand it, there's multiple ways, that it may fall out. But yes, countries have decided to go forward and merge, but not incorporate in other countries. I think some of the opinions that are out there, like I said, fall on the boundaries of the extreme and say things like, well, they would just not operate in the UK. And I would maybe challenge those notions and ask people to back off and think about it like HBO Max and Netflix. When you live in certain countries, you are unable to just look at it as a place where you can't stream or you can't package, right, in a certain way, certain types of content, right? We're all accustomed to, there are countries that couldn't access Game of Thrones, right? And so that led to Game of Thrones being the most highly pirated right, television property for many years. But all that meant was, and we do this all the time, right? There are certain countries that have certain deals. You put up a YouTube video, and it has like, I do this because the music we use on the podcast and the music I use in my live streams, I have a licensing deal with Epidemic Sound, and when I post them in a YouTube video, 99% of the time that works fine. Every 1% of the time, there's some country that doesn't have a licensing deal for that piece of music, so my video can't be played. So this happens all the time with countries that either content can't be sold or can't be provided in the same manner as another country. And another case in point, right, when I go back and I said that the report is that China has approved this deal. That's also not, because a similar scenario exists there at a global scale for digital media. It's a reason to not fall over thinking that everything's a green light in China. In China, video games are sold by you having to have an in-country partner to actually act as your proxy publisher in China. And the big nit is that Activision's partner that they had been using, which was NetEase, the two of them had a spat late last year, earlier this year, that has resulted in no Activision games are currently being sold in China because they basically parted ways with their in-country Chinese provider. And this happens in other industries as well. I've worked for companies that have sold industrial equipment, and in lots of countries, the specific regulations about a given piece of equipment is different than U.S. industrial, and these are things that have like high safety compliance regulations and things with them. And so, rather than us trying to sell it in that country, we sell it to basically a vendor. Sometimes we buy that vendor. Sometimes they're named blah 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 country UK, right? But they handle all of the licensing and the paperwork and the regulatory compliance and all that kind of stuff because it's so different. It doesn't make sense for us to operate that directly. So these types of situations and scenarios exist, for other things, and Microsoft Activision is going to have to go through that if they want to, sell their products in China, or even allow them to be streamed in China. Could create also some interesting scenarios where, Tencent is, I think, the number 4 cloud service provider after Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. And so it's going to create some interesting things when potentially, right, in order to live stream a game, it's going to have to go on Tencent servers. And then that's going to cause all types of ripple effects because in China, China is one of those companies, I'm pretty sure China is one of those countries that is very hyper-specific about their citizens not being able to access information that goes outside the country, and that their personal data can't leave the country. So again, this whole thing of like Activision Blizzard accounts, I don't know how you set up a Call of Duty account for a Chinese citizen, right? With those type of constrictions about it. And I don't know that they've had to figure that out before. And then there's, the other thing of like everybody's equivalent of the ESRB is different too. But China is one of those that's particularly in the extreme where, games that are sold in this country sometimes never get cleared to be sold in China. So lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of problems that make this thing not the slam dunk, I think, that some people sometimes think it is. I'm sorry, Sal. Any other questions or comments on that?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Our last story. Speaking of Overwatch, yeah, you have a story concerning that property as well.
Yes, good old Activision Blizzard in the headlines once more. So they had a Twitch stream recently for Overwatch 2, just kind of going over their content roadmap for the year and beyond, I'm assuming, for the next few seasons. And they were speaking with executive producer Jared Ness, and he was explaining how they had to cut the PvE hero mode that they actually had announced when they originally had announced Overwatch 2, which is kind of like the big thing, I think, when Overwatch 2 was announced, because obviously the original one it was always all PvP, as far as I can remember, as far as I can tell. So there's supposed to be this big hero mode where you'd have like different hero abilities or new hero abilities. You could do co-op attacks. There'd be a progression system going through there. And they've decided not to do that now. So when they're talking to him, he said development on the PvE experience had not really made the progress that they had hoped. The team had created a bunch of amazing content, so they're awesome missions that are really exciting, brand new enemies that were super fun to fight. Unfortunately, the effort required to put all that together, Blizzard quality experience that we all ship to was huge, and there really is no end to the site or defined kind of end date where we can put that out. So basically, their rationale, and he kind of goes on more. I'm kind of just ad-libbing, but how they had to make a decision. How are we going to like just pour into this PvE and try to get it out at some point? Like he wasn't sure like when they'd be able to do it, or are they just going to say, hey, we're going to cut it for now, just big huge experience, and then what they're going to do, I guess, for the next coming seasons is just kind of release story missions, which I didn't really see, like didn't really explain it, I don't believe, too much in this article from IGN. They just said they're story missions, so I'm assuming maybe kind of like called the Call of Duties, where they had those kind of co-op kind of mission modes you can do, and it's kind of separate from the main story. Like you weren't going just do the main story like you normally would. It was just a totally separate thing within the same universe, obviously still. So they're going to be releasing those, I guess, every season coming up. Didn't say for how long, at least for the next couple seasons. I think they only had 5, 6, and 7 so far that they're talking about in that stream. So at least for the next 3 seasons, we'll get some kind of at least missions that you can do. I'm assuming co-op. Once again, they didn't really go into too much detail on what the missions were actually going to be, but you'll at least get that. So it's kind of a bummer. I was actually kind of looking forward to this because even though, yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with Overwatch, and I think that's kind of like a lot of people, where it's just it's mechanics are good, the game's good. It's just, man, it's so like I hadn't played for a while, and I think I played for the first time. It was last weekend, maybe the weekend before. Me and my friend, and we were just getting trounced. Like we couldn't do anything. Like these guys were just like manhandling us all over the place. So it's just one of those games. Like if you kind of, at least for me, like if you kind of drop off of it for a while, like I can't just jump back into it. It at least for me too. I hadn't really played a lot of the first one. I really got into the original Overwatch like right near the end, before they had right before they had announced 2. So I was really catching up, and I wasn't doing too bad. And I don't know if it's just because it's 2, obviously people are just like going into it hardcore now. So maybe I'm just out of practice, but I was kind of looking forward to that hero mode. That sounded pretty cool. And I always liked their animations that they would release, like when they're going to release a new character or just like maybe a new season from the original series. Animations are pretty cool. So I figured if they can bring something like that into like a story mode, that'd have been pretty awesome. But I mean, I guess we'll get something at least at some point, but it just kind of stinks because they looked like they had like a nice kind of like they had the progression system and everything, and you can do co-op, and that was what I was really looking forward to, because obviously I have my one friend that we always play stuff with, so that would be kind of cool. But I guess it is what it is, unfortunately, So, any comments on this one?
Well, you and I are the kind of consumers that I feel like would be actually impacted by this, right? Like, when the news came out, like I felt a disturbance in the force as if thousands cried out all at the same time, like Alderaan being destroyed. But a lot of that was, I think, a lot of noise, right? I think there are consumers who genuinely, like you and I, who there's a little nit, right, that prevents us from fully engaging and being head over heels about Overwatch, right, in the way that a lot of other people are. For you, it's your, slight friction that you have with hero-based shooters. For me, it's the fact that, to me, the game's not fun unless I'm actually with, like, a party, And so unless I had, at least 3 friends, but I mean, it's the game is the most fun when I've had like a full team of 6, myself and 5 friends, which I, only really obtained, when I was, hard into the live stream community on Twitch. And I mean, just like as an adult with a house and kid, family and work and a career and a 2-hour commute, like that's like, I'm just not going to find that, that number of people to consistently coordinate with unless you're playing Overwatch all the time. And we talk about this too, right? that there are lots of these multiplayer games that are very rewarding if you make them your main, but if they're just a side dish, right, then they're really hard. And Overwatch is like that for me. But these, single player PvE modes where, you don't have to have that type of adult coordination and you could just go in and enjoy the content, that is going to prevent, right, a potential avenue for me engaging with the Overwatch property. So, but by the same token, it's a weird thing in the industry now. I just personally don't walk away from from these things feeling like somebody lied to me, right? Like there's a to me there's a difference between a third party publisher and a platform owner. When a platform owner, and yes, you can call it an unfair standard if you want to, but I've harped right long and very with a great deal of acidity about Microsoft and the 12-month plan, but that to me that's different because a platform owner asked me to make a multi-$100 investment on the front end of the generation, right? And that $500 right piece of electronics and plastic does absolutely no good unless games are provided for it, right? And so when Microsoft tells me, hey, 12-month plan, here's all the games you're going to be playing in 12 months, and then comes back in a follow-on showcase and acts as if they never said that, that to me is when I start hitting the point where I feel like somebody's lied to me. Which is similar to a carrier. A carrier sells you a phone and they're supposed to provide you service. You buy a computer and it's supposed to do certain things over the lifetime of that computer. But companies that just provide content, the way I look at it is, particularly for Overwatch, which is free to play. If Overwatch makes a design choice and decision and a staffing decision and a financial decision that they're not going to provide a mode, they didn't take anything from me. Maybe there was an opportunity cost, but then the scenario and the mentality would have had to been that I agreed to invest time in the multiplayer because I thought that there was going to be single player content. And that to me, it feels like an edge case. So, and some people have taken them to task because, for the decision to go to Overwatch 2 instead of just trying to architect this into Overwatch 1. And again, it's a personal view and I don't expect everyone to have it. But as a software engineer, I'm not going to second guess or call into question what a peer of mine, right, says and decides, and says is practical within their architecture. I have many times said, take this code, throw it in the trash, the change that we have to make, we've got to start over. And it's always unpleasant and it's always fraught with tension. And there's always a ton of friction between all the different stakeholders that are involved. So it's definitely not fun for people who are on the receiving end of that or parties standing on the sidelines. I get that. But just for me, I'm just not personally, in the business of saying, they were wrong or this wasn't the right choice or, I mean, unless I put my own eyes on the code, like I just, that's a choice and decision that I feel is like hyper personal to the people working on the project.
Yeah. I always kind of cringe. Like when like, even though I'm not a software developer, I am in IT though. And I've seen, what those guys go through and, what it takes to get stuff out. And when people are like, oh, they could just like copy and paste. It's like, no, dude. You can't just do that. Like it doesn't work like that. Like I know it seems like it's that simple, but it's really not. Like in the background, there's all kinds of things going on, and sometimes you do have to just tear it down and rebuild it. Unfortunately, like you said, but and in this case, it's like I'm bummed about it, but it's like okay, I'll play something else. That's cool. I got other things I can play. I could still play Overwatch 2. Just multiplayer PvP for now. So we'll get, like I said, we'll get the missions. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and that's not to say that I'm saying nobody should be upset about it and nobody should be bothered about it. Like if you've played Overwatch and you've put a bunch of money in for like skins and stuff and I don't know, collections and because you thought that, there was PvE content coming and you were going to be able to like finish a thing. I don't know. I get it. And if you choose to be dissatisfied with it, I think that's fully justified. I'm just saying the causality of, you know, I'm just not going to choose to be unhappy because of a software design and architecture decision that somebody made. I'll choose to be unhappy, but I can choose to be unhappy just as a dissatisfied consumer, not, visiting, my own beliefs on their intentions of how they went about doing it. Okay, well, that's it for the news for tonight. Let's go on to segment 3 and go ahead and close out the show with a round robin of the remainder of our gamer experience over the last week. You want to pick up and carry on with talking to us about Baseball 9. You talked through this last week when I was talking about MLB The Show. So what's been your experience in it the last week or so?
Yeah, just real quick. Still been playing this pretty much all week. I probably played it almost probably every day. Just going through the different seasons. I had beat the first rookie season. Now I'm on rookie season 2. I'm actually on the championship series on that one, and it actually going through just like the postseason, especially in that first season was. I mean, I kind of just like ran through everybody, and then going through the postseason on this one, I had a little bit of trouble here and there, but this championship series though is definitely they've dialed up the difficulty. I'm still winning. I think I've won two games so far. I think it's best out of 5. But excuse me. I'm barely winning by like a point or 2 now. So they're definitely giving me some difficult games now, but it's just kind of cool that it's ramping up a little, so I'm not just like trouncing everybody. It's like a lot of times, like when I play these kind of type of games, it's like okay, I'm just beating everybody, and then I just bounce off the game because it's like it kind of just gets boring. But now they're actually giving me a challenge, so that's kind of nice. And then I guess I'm gonna get past the rookie league. I'm not really sure. I thought I'd be past it after that first season, but hopefully there's not a rookie 3. But I'll guess I'll keep progressing through their ranks and see what happens.
Now, one thing I didn't ask, so with Marvel Snap, which you said this has kind of been your replacement for time-wise, there were season passes. Are there any kind of season passes or anything in Baseball 9, or is it just you just bought the game and that's it, and you plow through it as you see fit?
No, there's no season passes. There are accessories that you can buy that actually help your players. So, but once again, there's no PvP in this game. It's all PvE. So, if you want to, you can buy there's like jewelry and like stuff like costume, basically stuff. But it actually does help. It boosts your stats on whoever you put it on. But I'm not going to even bother with that stuff. There's other ways you can do that within the game that you don't have to pay real money. So it's no big deal.
All right, very cool. I have been continuing to play Horizon Zero Dawn on PC. Even though this is a game that came out last year, I've played most of the other Sony PlayStation games that have come to PC, but just recently started playing Horizon Zero Dawn. Progressed the story a little bit further and continuing to have a good time with it. It continues to perform well. I think I'm hitting the part of the game where like the combat prowess of Aloy is really starting to kind of present itself, and where I'm really feeling rewarded by engaging with the different mechanics. It's kind of been like just a big long drawn out tutorial up to this point. So I finally like hit the point where, I was really starting to actually fight, people. And so that was a good aspect. In conjunction with playing that, this week I also picked up the SteelSeries Arctis Nova Pro. So I've had some Arctis 7s and Arctis 9s for a long time. The original Arctis Novas that came out, I thought they didn't review well. Maybe that was the Arctis Nova 7, so maybe it was like the mid-tier headset. But the Nova Pros have reviewed very well. Finally got my hands on one, and it was very difficult. It's kind of in the pictures and the renders that you see at the place, like on Amazon and stuff. The base station is like very difficult to make out. I wasn't really certain that's what it was. It's weird. They only show you the face of it. They don't really show you the body of it, but it's like a fairly like chunky piece of gear, maybe about the size of, the palm of my hand, square wise. But that thing, the base station has like an additional battery bay. So it comes with 2 removable batteries, which is not the norm with headsets, but And you can actually take one of those batteries and put them in the base station and charge it. And so if you're really playing for an incredibly long period of time, which I guess you would have to be if you're, because these batteries, I mean, I played 2 to 4 hours at a time, and I mean, I see it chip away only like a 1% or 2 in the batteries. But you could do it and do a hot swap right out of the battery bay and then throw the other one in there. It has a little display on the front, which to me is neat that it has it, but it's basically useless. Like it has a volume dial display on it that shows you what the volume setting is, which I've just set one time and I'll probably never change it again. So it's great that I can see it on the display, but I don't know how functional it is. It has
is that on the headset itself or on the base station?
On the base station.
Oh, okay.
On the base station. The base station then has left and right meter bars that, change rate with audio, but I'm like, when I'm playing a game, I'm not looking at the base station and looking at the meters. Like, I guess if you're wearing the headset and doing, audio or video production, like maybe that'll make a difference. I don't know. And then I forget what else it has. And then what I do like is it has battery meter indicators, both for the battery in your headset as well as the battery in the docking station. So, that's useful. The only other place you could see that battery meter indication is in the actual SteelSeries engine app that shows up in your sys tray, and when you're in a game in full screen mode, you obviously can't see that. But the headsets themselves seem really high quality, very premium. They've got little leatherette cups, which I'm used to. The SteelSeries ones just kind of have those cloth fabric cups, so they're really comfortable. The headset feels a lot more lightweight than the Arctis 7s and Arctis 9s do, which feel like pretty heavy headsets. The claim to fame of the SteelSeries headsets is that they have the elastic auto expanding band. So you never have to make any adjustments in the headset. You just kind of put it on and it stretches to fit your head. The SteelSeries, they have the headband, but the actual left and right stalks that the ear cups are on, those actually extend as well. So actually I feel like it's kind of the best of both worlds. You can extend the headset so that you don't have to like stretch the band. Like the band is super comfortable, but if you've got a really big head, right, when you're stretching that band, it can feel pretty tight on your head, when you're stretching it at its limit. So, but overall, and the controls feel a lot more intuitive. I've just had lots of headsets as I test and review them, with some really clunky controls, to where like some of my wireless headsets, like I literally have to take the headset off and look at the controls to see where everything is laid out. But this thing just has a volume wheel, an on-off switch, a mute switch, and then on the right, and those are all in the left ear cup. And then on the right ear cup, it has the Bluetooth switch, since the headsets. And that's the other thing. With all the headsets that I've tested, very few of them are both RF, proprietary RF, usually on the 2.4 gigahertz band, and have Bluetooth and have a 3.5 millimeter cord so that you can use it in wired mode. The SteelSeries Arctis Nova Pro has all three. So that's a positive. I think some of them, typically back off of one of those, but then will still be just as expensive, which I don't really understand. But it's neat that this has it. It's neat that it has the 3.5 millimeter mode. I don't like since it includes a 3.5 millimeter cable, they go compatible with the Nintendo Switch. I don't really think it makes you compatible with a device because it has a 3.5 millimeter port, but I guess technically that's not necessarily wrong. I have to go back and actually look at the SteelSeries Arctis Nova Pros. They may actually be wirelessly compatible. I mean, you could put them in Bluetooth mode and actually pair with the Nintendo Switch anyway. So it would be one of the few headsets that actually works with all consoles. I don't know if it works with the Xbox, because the super weird thing about Xbox, and again, I don't have mine anymore, but for whatever reason, you would think it would be the opposite way, but for whatever reason, the PlayStation 5 seems to work with PC wireless headsets, even when they don't advertise that they're compatible with PlayStation. they tend to just work. You often don't get the 3D audio because that's a proprietary signal. But in general, they just work. The PC I use these Arctis Nova Pros at, those displaced my Logitech G Pro X wireless, which I shifted to using those with my PlayStation 5 because the Pulse 3D audio has a horrible microphone, and it just works. So, but that's what I've been playing on PC. On PlayStation 5, I'm sorry, Tao, any questions about Horizon Zero Dawn? Yeah. On PlayStation 5, I've been playing, I mentioned I was going to get into World Rally Championship Generations, or WRC Generations, which continues to be made by Nacon and KT Racing, I think is the name of the development team. I'm not as impressed by WRC as much as I was when I first started playing it. It was WRC 8 or 9. During those years where there wasn't like a dirt rally game. Those WRC games I thought were the best thing being offered in rally racing if you're really into that. Generations, man, it's not only that it's the same game, it's the fact that it just continues to lose a little bit of a skosh of graphical fidelity in comparison to the rest of the market each year. The first year that I played it, I didn't mind it. I didn't mind there being some pop in because it's the official game of the WRC. It models the WRC season and the tracks with much more parity than Dirt Rally even does. But this year, WRC Generations is a 2022 game. It does 2K 60 and 4K 30, and at 4K 30, I can really see the difference, right? And that was the mode that I initially played in because I wanted to see, the background art and the tracks and the grass rendering and things like that. But I feel like I could really feel it, right, in terms of a lack of smoothness in the turn, which is in particular in racing games is where I feel like I can tell the frame rate the most. So, I'm still having fun with it. It's still a rally game. I'm a big rally fan. I'm a little forgiving. But this is a game that I feel like needs to kind of turn the corner with the next iteration to really pick up from that. Like I don't know that 4K 30 is really acceptable for a racing game, this year. I will say, small change in kind of how the campaign is normally laid out. Normally you can go in and you can see the calendar and you have all the events. And each date will typically have like 2 or 3 events and you can choose one, which one you want to do. And there's this whole thing you have to do in the career mode where you have to load balance, how exhausted your team gets. And then sometimes you have to replace team members, right, who need a rest. This season, what they've done is when you go into the calendar, it only has one event, but they keep the calendar events hidden. So there's kind of the expectation for you to not do all of them, but to make select dates. And then when you go in and select that date, then they tell you what event is on there. So slight change, slight tweak, maybe doesn't make as huge a difference, just kind of makes a small difference in kind of how you think about like I said, managing the endurance of your team. But other than that, supposedly my wheel and pedals, like I mentioned, I think last week, work on that, but I haven't tried them yet. But the DualSense works just fine. And the other thing I'll mention before I let you go on with your last report is arguably maybe the most exciting thing I've been playing in the past week, as I've been revisiting Assassin's Creed Odyssey, this time on the PlayStation 5. I really thought long and hard about playing this on PC, but here's the thing. I think in general the perception and image of PlayStation Plus, particularly PlayStation Plus Premium, falls way short of what's actually in there. I was going to buy Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This is still a $60 game on Steam, amazingly enough, 5 years after it came out. On PlayStation, it happens to be in PlayStation Plus Premium, and that caused me to go in and dig and kind of just take some metrics. There's 902 games in PlayStation Plus Premium, which to me is just an absolutely flabbergasting number of games. And now they've just recently put like all the siphon filters in there. So there's lots of Sturm and Drang about PlayStation Plus Premium. I think people not realizing the total number of games that are in there. A lot of Sturm and Drang about backwards compatibility. And I know it's got, some PlayStation 3 blind spots and things like that. But, again, the conversation around Game Pass is often pushed back from certain fans who say, well, Game Pass has so many things in it, you should just be satisfied. Nobody should have any complaints about Game Pass not being enough. Well, then I compare it to PlayStation Plus Premium, and I would say, okay, nobody should be making an argument that there's not enough stuff in PlayStation Plus Premium because there's just a mountain of content. The other thing that was most pertinent is I went in there and I started kind of looking around at the games that are in there. And I'm like, what? Like, that's in it? What? And what I realize is, I think another, voice track that goes around now is how PlayStation needs to go day and date like Xbox does. And I'm like, maybe, but, tens of millions of people pay for PlayStation first-party games when they come out, right? So maybe there's an argument that they don't need to go day and date in their subscription service, being that there are 50 million people, right, on PlayStation Plus versus 25 million people on Game Pass. I don't know that PlayStation needs to generate a whole ton of additional, right, subscriptions versus, right, selling their first party games right as outright sales. But even with that, I looked at it and I'm like, wait, hold on a second. Every major first party PlayStation game that came out in 2021 or earlier, like the only thing that's not in PlayStation Plus Premium are 2022 games. Like, Spider-Man's in there. Miles Morales is in there. The Uncharted collection is in there. The Uncharted 4 remaster is in there. I'm like, if you chose not to buy the games when they first came out, like a year and a half later, they're in the subscription service, which to me is just like, Ratchet and Clank, like everything of significance that's been launched this generation. And PlayStation has had a lot of good games that have launched this generation. They're in the subscription service. So I think that was the most kind of startling thing for me when I went and looked at it. But for that reason, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is also in there because the Ubisoft Classic Collection is in there. All the Ghost Recons are in there. So I wanted to revisit Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And man, I'm having a ton of fun. It hits like I said, I recently rehashed like what my favorite games and genres are, and it's hitting like action RPG, looter shooter, those vibes. I've talked to you guys before about my, take a knee and draw your football play in the sand kind of effect that I used to experience a lot with Far Cry 5, which is why I love that game so much. I feel that also with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And in fact, I didn't realize it back then, but it's like when you complete a mission, it's literally like the same post-mission animation as Far Cry 5. Like, I got to listen. I think it might even be the same music. So, and that's what you get when every Ubisoft studio works on every single game. But like today I went in and when I think I did like 4 or 5 quests like within a 2-hour time period. And one of them I went in and I stole the Cyclops' eye, right? And it was exactly that. I was able to set Icaros. I was able to aerially scout the camp. I was able to identify like the camp leader. I was able to figure out where the Cyclops' eye was stored. And then there were 2 points of high ground that flanked the base. So even though there was a main entrance, I was able to scale the wall. I took the one on the right. I was able to scale the wall, get to a high point of elevation, drop down and assassinate people from a height, hide in the bushes, drag their bodies. I took one body and like threw it over the sea. It was right backed onto the hideout, backed onto a sea cliff. So I was able to throw the body off the cliff. Then I was able to sneak in, grab the eye. I was able to use my bow and arrow because I just, got my butt. Like again, like just that being able to like script out in your mind how you wanted to go about like taking down the encampment, right? Which is what Far Cry 5 is all about. Just it hit all those vibes. So having a huge amount of time, I realize now going back in history, like I spent more time in Origins and then less time in Odyssey and then less time in Valhalla. So it's a good opportunity to go back and revisit Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I think those games get a bad rap. I've been kind of going back and looking at the history of the Assassin's Creed franchise. I knew that they had taken a year off, but I didn't. But Assassin's Creed. I think Syndicate was the last one, and then before that was the year they put out 2. I think they put out Assassin's Creed Unity and Assassin's Creed something or other else. Black Flag and a lot of those games had kind of ridden a high, and then the series had kind of fallen off, and then they took a year off, and then that's when they came back with kind of this open world kind of approach that I think all those games reviewed well and sold well, but kind of in revisionist history, like lots of people have blow opinions of them, but. Like I said, I'm going back and revisiting Assassin's Creed now, and I'm having a huge ton of fun. Plays in 1440p 60, so that's a little disappointing. It's unfortunate that PlayStation wasn't able to apply some type of automated frame boost or something like that to kind of make those games perform a little better. But I'm still having a ton of fun. So sorry, I went on a long time. I packed 3 of my games in the follow-up section together. Any questions about any of those?
Going back to WRC for a second, and you've played the Dirt series, right? So, are those the Dirt and WRC? Is that just 2 different games on the same like kind of like racing?
Yeah. So Dirt. So the way Dirt has been structured, although they just changed it. So Codemasters has So Dirt Rally has been going on. So Dirt Rally was originally Colin McRae. That game came out in like 2000. So the franchise has been going on for 20 plus years. In 2000 in the 2000 teens, so 2013, 2014, they split the series up, and it became they went Dirt Rally, which is like the sim heavy version of the game that's highly technical and is really punishing and more accurately models the FIA WRC motorsport series. But they didn't have the FIA WRC license. And then Dirt, which is the more arcadey kind of approach. So your Dirt 5s, Dirt 4, Dirt 2, which was the Gymkhana one with gosh, I can't remember the guy's name, but there's a famous like Gymkhana guy. His name starts with a K or something. That was part of that. So those arcadey type of games, they split the series up between those and Rally. So they did Dirt Rally 1 and then Dirt Rally 2.0. WRC Generations is more akin to Dirt Rally, but they have the official FIA WRC license. But that series it changed hands between, I think, WRC 6 and 7, or maybe 7 and 8. And I can't remember. They either changed publishers or developers or both. I'm not exactly sure because I didn't play the older games before the change. So that's just kind of how those series are different.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like, if they were like totally different racing like genres, or if it was just like the same thing but 2 different games. So okay, that makes sense.
Yep. So Interestingly enough, the game that you're going to talk about, one thing I want to ask you, did you see the news story and were you playing when this whole thing about the trios mode is going away?
Yeah, that's why I brought it up because yeah, that was the big controversy this past week, where they did their this big update, which actually I think was like a day late. I think it was supposed to come out Tuesday like early Tuesday morning, like a late Monday, but they actually delayed it till Wednesday. And before that, though, they already announced that they're getting rid of trios. That and this goes for both build and no build. The trios mode. So now it's just solo, duos, and squads. And then they're putting a ranked mode, which is both for a build and no build. And for right now, it's only in duos. So I don't know if they're going to like switch that out like every week, month, or however long it's going to be, or every season. I don't know how the rank's going to play out. And they already had like a ranked arenas that they would do, but those were like, I think those only came out like every other week or maybe like a couple times a month or something like that. Like it was just like a special thing they did. But now this rank mode is like in there. Like you can pick it, like you can choose, build or no build. And then you go into the next section where it's like, hey, I want to do ranked or not. You can flip it on and off. And yeah, there's a lot of people, including myself, and I'm still a little salty that they took out the trios because I always say trios seems to be the perfect fit. Like, duos is fine, yeah, it's only two of you, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer too, like with solos also. And squads is just too it's just too chaotic. There's just too many, there's too much going on, like with so many people and four teams. So I thought trios was always good. That's why one of the reasons I really liked Apex was because that was always trios. I think for the longest time they might have duos now or singles or something, but and then there's a trios and like they always had those modes in like battle royale games, but yeah, for some reason, and then I didn't really see like I kind of looked a little bit like when they first announced it, like what the reasoning was, but I didn't really find anything why they took it out. Like some people were speculating, and this was just on forums and wherever the other sites that it was the least played mode, which I get possibly I guess, but I don't know. I saw a lot of fervor though too once they announced it and once that happened, but since that time, I've actually jumped back in. I tried playing, some duos and some squads. It's like duos is fine. Like solos, I would do solos because I go through and just kind of do my quests when I do solos for the most part. To just kind of go through my battle pass, and that's still fine. Like that's always going to be a staple of mine. But trying to do duos with like one random person, it's like when you had trios and you had at least one other decent person on your team. Like if that third person was just like you totally carry him, like that's kind of fine. Like you can, use him as a human shield or something. Like just let him go out and run out there and get shot, and then you can pick the people off. And then like I said, with the squads, it's just like too chaotic. So trios was kind of the perfect middle. So I tried doing both. Like I tried doing duos and squads. I was like, oh man, I can't, man, I just can't do it. So I was like, all right, let me try ranked. Like I'll try it. I was pleasantly surprised where it seems like the matchmaking is really good, at least for now. And I think that was the other problem with the other modes is when you're in those ranked modes, there's supposed to be matchmaking in there, and some people speculate that sometimes they took it out like between seasons or whatever in certain modes. So it kind of seemed like that because it's like, man, sometimes I'm doing really good and then I just get like totally wrecked. Like, and then maybe that's just me being like I'm getting better. So like they put me with these like higher people. But now doing this ranked mode, it actually does seem like the matchmaking is pretty good. Like I like almost every game that I've played, like I'm always in that top 10 or top 15-ish, depending on what's going on. And before I just get wrecked like within the first 3 minutes or something. Sometimes and other times, obviously it'd be fine. And I don't think there's any bots because there's bots in the regular modes on the unranked modes. I don't think there's any bots in the ranked mode as far as I can tell and as far as I've seen online. Which makes sense because you don't want to, that can skew your ranking, obviously. So it looks, and like with that, like I said, it looks like the matchmaking is really decent. So I'm actually quite enjoying it. I jumped in with my friend, my one friend I play with all the time, and we were doing pretty. We haven't won anything yet. We just played one night this past weekend because we were both busy, and we got real close a bunch of times too. So I'm and then they kind of have like a separate. I don't want to say battle pass, but it's just like rewards you can get through the rank system. And it's nothing like special, it's just sprays and stuff like that. But it's kind of cool at least to give you something a little bit, to work toward, I guess, other than just saying, hey, I'm in the the gold or platinum tier. I think the highest tier you can get is Unreal. That makes a lot of sense, since they're all about the Unreal. So I don't think I'll ever get to that. I'm actually in the gold rank right now. I think gold 1. I think it goes up to 3, and then you rank up to the next tier. I think it's like platinum and then diamond, or it might be switched. I can't remember, but and like I said, the last one's Unreal. So I'm in gold right now, and if I stay there, that's fine. Like as the ranking system works, like as you get killed, depending on how many kills you have and how high you place in that match, then you kind of rank up. You get points and you rank up in that section. But if like nothing happens at all, like you get killed right away or something, you do go down. So there's that kind of back and forth. And I don't know if you can go down a level. Like I've been in gold now for a while. I haven't gotten like so bad that it doesn't look like I ranked down at all. And even when I was at silver, I started at like silver 1 or 2, and I lost a few matches and I didn't seem to go down. So I think you might always stay at least in that bracket. Like I don't think you rank down like back another level. So that's kind of nice if that's actually how it works. At least maybe now in these lower tiers, that's how it works. So we'll see if I can get to that higher tier, if that continues or not. But like I said, I'm enjoying it right now, and I got like another week I think for this season, and then it's going to switch again. So we'll see what happens next season.
So now, what's your prediction of the population that was playing trios? Do you think, because as you were talking through that and you mentioned solos, I gave some consideration to, because I had kind of decided I'm done with Fortnite and I'm not going back. I'm also done with Halo Infinite, and so that leaves Call of Duty for me, and I'm not because I'm not doing Apex Legends. We'll probably get back on board Destiny 2 at some point, but I never played Destiny 2 PvP. So PvP wise, it's just Call of Duty. But there was a glimmer of light in there where I said, well, maybe I should go back and try Fortnite solos, because I'm wondering, is the population that was playing trios going to now migrate to squads? Or will, even if a hypothetical 1/3 of the people who were playing trios now go play solos, that might round that match playing base off a little and decrease the number of bots and kind of the emptiness, right? That got me out of playing solos, because there were so few people playing it that it was just a hollow experience. But I mean, where do you think those people are going to go?
Yes, that's tough. I'm assuming they'd probably just jump into squads for the most part. Because I mean, at that point, you're only having that one extra person, getting thrown on your team, and obviously there was a lot of trios, because obviously there's a lot of people, demanding like they bring it back and stuff like that. It's like they're probably not going to do that. Well, they even said that they'll probably bring it back at some point, but just as a limited time mode, which is what they used to do a lot of times before with a lot of stuff. But it still doesn't make sense though. Like they have all these other things that you can do. Like they have within like the creative suite, all these most death runs, and like they have these scary games now, because that seems to be like the big thing nowadays, kind of like the Five Nights at Freddy's and stuff like that. They have like the zombie modes, which just kind of draws on their own like Save the World mode, although you can't build in that mode. It's just kind of like the Call of Duty zombie modes, where kind of just go place to place, or you kind of get stuck in certain areas. They have all these modes. I just don't understand. Like all those other modes can't be like obviously filled with people at all times. Like I just don't get like why they even took that out. Like took the trios out. It still doesn't make sense to me. But more than likely, I'm probably going to assume they'd probably jump up into squads, and maybe once the ranking comes back up, maybe some of those, like you said, they might filter down back into duos and solos. But it's it's kind of hard to tell right now. I had another thought, but go ahead if you had another question. I'm sorry.
Well, not a question, but a comment. I wonder if there was something about telemetry that we haven't guessed that they were seeing. Something like the people who played trios were spending less money overall, or the people who play trios, right? Because one of the reasons I dislike battle royales is because I've often, when I'm joking and poking people in the ribs, I will often say like that's just a talking simulator. Like everybody just kind of like runs around and loots for like 10, 15 minutes, having a good time and socializing, and then you get like 30 seconds of combat. So I wonder if it was something like the average round of trios was lasting less time than a round of squads, or people would just people were where the mode was almost like too efficient, where people were spending less time overall engaged, and like I said, we're winding up spending less money, or something that was kind of a weird demographic that they were seeing through telemetry. And so their effort was to push people in directions that for some reason, in a population pool that for some reason was either spending more money or spending more time engaged with the game, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you mentioned that now, because when my friend and I were playing that, and we play a lot of duos too, but a lot of times we had a third person that we were able to bring in. And a lot of times we never got to those last end. When we actually won, we would never get to that last ring, or even the second to the last ring. Like the game would be over like well before that. And sometimes, even if we didn't win, like, for like third, fourth, fifth, sometimes we'd stay on and just kind of see how that team does, hoping they get taken out, because, that's how it goes most of the time. But even in that case, like, those people would, like, they'd be done like in like a second. And I think obviously when that happens, like, and that's the thing in battle royals, obviously, and especially I don't know. It always seems in Fortnite it's worse. I shouldn't say worse, but it happens more often. But you get that third party aspect of it, where you're fighting a team, and then all of a sudden there's like two other teams come pounce on you, while you're fighting that one team. So that could have been what it was. Maybe that these matches were just ending quickly. So, but we'll see.
All right, man. My last game that I'll mention that I was playing, just played a little bit after the show last week. That's what I stayed up late and played, was MLB The Show 23. Kind of like you mentioned, still playing Baseball 9 on mobile. So I did wind up finishing that 3-game series against the Tampa Bay Rays. Swept them. Really happy with my pitching. I did finally start kind of delving into kind of managing, my team and the personnel. I wound up, kind of, tamping down some people, kicking some people down to double A's, and then having that kind of domino effect throughout the team, messing with it. Now I got to learn about like the difference between like the roster and the 40-man team, which is just a pain in the butt. But I did all of that so I could grab a free agent who kind of helps fill out my pitching lineup. I've got Strasburg, who's like a 90-something player or a high 80-something player. But I don't have a lot of like strong 70 players, in their overall rating behind him. I just, at the bottom of my pitching staff, it was getting down into the 60s and stuff. So I did go out and grab a free agent and brought him onto the staff that bolsters them up. So I started, messing around with the lineups and kind of shifting some people around. So that's a big meta that really hooked me into Madden back in the days. So we're gonna see if I gain that affinity for it for baseball. I've never spent the time really monkeying with the roster and personnel management piece of it. But now that I'm kind of dedicating some more time to focusing on sports games and baseball in particular this year, that may afford me some additional enjoyment. So, anything kind of on your radar for getting into this week?
No, I haven't really. I've been pretty busy this past week too, so I hadn't really got a chance to see what's coming out, or if there's anything coming out. I still want to kind of try that 2K Drive at some point, a racing game, like a Lego racing game, and I'll just keep going along with Hogwarts Legacy for sure, though. How about you? Anything?
I'm planning on getting into Metroid Prime Remastered starting tomorrow night. So not sure whether or not I'm going to play that on the OLED or the regular Switch, or on a monitor or in handheld mode. But planning on getting into that. I didn't talk about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, but I've still been playing a chunk of that. On my way to, I'm pretty sure I'm like prestige $299 now, so I'm trying to break, 300. I've pretty much given up working on weapons and just focusing now on prestige and the battle pass. So I'm planning on spending a fairly healthy amount of time on that this week, probably on the PlayStation 5. versus PC, just because I can go on there and still play mouse and keyboard, but also turn off crossplay. So kind of gives me a little bit of a leg up, an advantage that at my age I don't mind taking. So, but that's what I'll start the week off with anyway, and we'll see how the week goes on. So that's going to do it for our show tonight. Thanks a lot, Tao, for joining in. For anybody out there, for anybody who came through the live stream tonight, we appreciate you. For anybody who happens to swing through and watch the archive version of this show, either on YouTube or if you're pulling down the audio from SoundCloud or Spotify, we appreciate you as well. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post the next episode. Next week, DBQ will be helming the ship as Tao. And actually, I take that back. So next week, because of Memorial Day weekend and everybody's schedule being all kind of janky, we're actually going to record Monday night on the 29th, when I believe all three of us should be able to be on. So we will see you guys then. Or if you, like I said, if you pull down the audio, it'll be there for you at some point, available during the week after Memorial Day. So until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe out there, play the games that you like. I'm here to talk about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, one of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast, here tonight with Towmaster99. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.